but at the same time, it almost felt like I liked them in a gay way, and I never understood that.
Huh.
Just like, I don't know, in high school, I identified basically as metrosexual, which was I don't know if
that was the term then. Yeah. I don't even know if that still exists. Who knows?
I don't think so.
I don't either. I haven't heard that in a long time. So thank you for making me older today on this show. And you included, by the way.
So I don't know, that was just the term that was my best guess, my best feeling for what my sexuality was, which is basically I'm a male, I like women, but I also don't feel like I quite fit the stereotypical straight box.
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked things differently. I had a relationship with women, or I wanted things out of relationships with women that were just a little different than the average straight guy I'd meet. So I don't know. It's just one of those things that always felt a little off to me, but I could never really put my finger on it and specify, hey, this is a trans thing. This is, something you should look at. For me, like every time I had that little puzzle piece pop up and say, hey, you should, look about this. You should think about this. I would always push it to the back of my mind, and I would be like, oh, I'll think about this later. I will, I have so many other things going on in my life. I don't know about you, but like, I always feel like my life has a certain path that it's supposed to follow, or at least it did when I was a teenager anyway. Like I was going to get through high school, and then I was going to get through college, and I was going to get married. And like, there are certain goal points that I had. And I always pushed any sort of gender questioning off till after I got whatever else I was busy with done.
I completely understand. And I think most of the listeners do. You're born, you go to school, you go to college, you find your sweetheart, you get married, you pop out babies. That's not necessarily how it worked for me either. And, all my girlfriends have kids, and they all followed this thing and that thing. And I didn't. I did my own thing. And I mean, I dabbled in the girl department, but it wasn't my thing. It was just, I don't know, you're in college, you're experimenting, so, and also that was a long time ago. But, you mentioned your gender and genitalia. Mm. And I think that's a really interesting topic. It's incredibly interesting to me. Can you speak to that?
I mean, I think the main takeaway on that topic is I hope that people remember that your gender isn't really related to your genitalia at all. I hope that, I don't know, when you meet people, generally you don't ask what's in their pants. I mean, I don't know. I just, for trans people especially, it's a tricky and a sometimes frustrating topic, because it feels like the minute you say you're trans, people start making certain assumptions.
Right.
And that's, I don't know, I'm more than my genitals, I guess.
You are more than your genitals. Thank you. I'm going to start making t-shirts of that. I love that so much. But it's true, because I think there's just, they try to put anybody that's in the LGBTQ community in one box, and that's it. You're just different from everybody else. Oh, come on. That is such a cop-out for not being loving and learning more and doing what we're doing right now, which is talking about it instead of just guessing and assuming because they saw some, big feather boa parade in Los Angeles, and that's how everybody is. And you know what? Great. I wish the whole damn world was dancing around in feather boas. I think we'd have a much more loving and happy and cohesive relationship with the people that are in our communities. But I mean, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's sad.
It would be nice if everyone was a little bit more accepting.
Yeah. So when you were working towards coming out, when you were working towards finding the puzzle pieces underneath the couch cushions, right? And you were trying to put this together, what did you do to get to all of the puzzle pieces? And are they all together right now? Or are you still like trying to find another little piece here and there?
Well, I mean, I think every once in a while I remember something that happened in my childhood, or, there's little things that pop up here and there, but I think I'm pretty confident with where I fit in the world these days. I don't know, being trans just answered so many of my own internal questions, the little silly things like, I don't know, when I look back over my childhood and look at my favorite media, so like my favorite book growing up or my favorite music, I don't know, I think my favorite book series when I was a younger child was probably like the Anna Green Gables series, if you remember that.
Of course I do. I'm more than a decade older than you. I definitely remember Anna Green Gables. And I was reading Hardy Boys.
Right. I don't know, Anna Green Gables and Nancy Drew. And I don't know, my reading interests were always leaned heavily feminine and I never really understood it. And same with my music choices. Like if you asked me my favorite music in the 90s, when I was in my teenage years, assuming I was honest about it, I'd be like, hey, Dido and Pink and I don't know, Avril Lavigne, like they're all female artists. And I struggled with that because I'm like, clearly these are not boy interests.
But why am I rocking out to Pink right now? Hey, don't slam Pink because I actually just had to shave most of my head and my hair looks like Pink and she shreds. But, and we all listen to me, but I was listening to like Pennywise and Guns N' Roses. And, I was, I was in this more like anarchy kind of, I grew up, the more of an anarchy kind of a society in that world. So, and I didn't turn out, as an anarchist, but I mean, I'm agnostic, but enough about me. But yeah, I mean, these things that, and in fact, I do a lot of work on myself, if you can believe it. And you've been with me for so long, you've seen changes. Life has not been very easy for me. And I am trying to put, even at 44, I am trying, I feel like I have half of a puzzle missing. And so I'm kind of jealous. So bite me. No, I'm kidding.
Taken some pain and a lot of changes to get here.
Yeah.
I'll say that. I don't know. It was a bit of a winding journey, but I did get there eventually.
Did you go through, I am in therapy every Friday at 9 a.m. because if not, I would, with this suicide disease, like I talked about, without him, I probably would have already taken my life. I swear to God. And I know you have experienced me kind of hinting at that to you and you've brought it up to me. And I know you've gone through that with me over the years. And thank you for helping me step off the bridge a little bit. And I only have like 2 or 3 people that I can talk to about it. So for me to even say this on this episode is like, whoa, I can't believe I'm doing it. But I know that I do therapy. Do you have a therapist now that you work with, or I know you had mentioned to me about gender therapy. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that's all about?
Yeah, that was one of the first early steps that I took. I don't know. Basically, I knew I needed to look at my gender seriously. I felt like I knew what I wanted, but I wasn't quite sure. So that was just the first logical step that I needed to talk to someone and kind of hash it out. So I found a local person in our area that specializes in this. They were, pro-LGBT. I don't know. I just looked for a situation where I could talk to someone and I knew they wouldn't judge me about whatever I ultimately came up, whatever decision I made. Ultimately what I wanted was someone to say, yes, you're trans and that's okay. But at the same time, that isn't really their job. Their job is simply to listen and to help basically give you the space to explore on your own and sort of come up with your own. I'm hesitant to call it a decision because I don't think being trans is a decision. I think trans is being something you discover about yourself over time. But at the same time, I think the decision to actually take steps towards making, big life changes is a decision. And my therapist was amazing about letting me talk, letting me, talk about all those little puzzle pieces and put things together and giving me the confidence to start coming out to people.
Well, yeah. And you did that pretty swiftly, didn't you?
I don't know. I think...
Because I thought you mentioned to me that like over a 3-month span of time, you're like, bang, bang, bang. I banged that all out. And I was like, whoa, like that's impressive. Because I still I got like a little new tattoo on my arm and I was like, oh my gosh, my mom's going to love it. Because she also is, in the conservative religious side of things. Not that tattoos have anything to do with that, but she doesn't like her little girl having, her body, and so are you still working with a therapist or no?
I'm not actively working with a therapist at the moment. I have one on call. She's amazing if I ever needed to talk to someone.
That's great. Okay.
And obviously the amount of therapy and what you go through may depend on the person. People have very different paths towards understanding that they're trans and even, the actions they take after they do decide they want to move forward. Some people, literally take hormones for years before actually coming out publicly. For me, me, like I feel like most of my life I've been very slow to make decisions.
Yes, indeed.
I don't know. I need to ponder it. I need to spend a lot of time thinking. I think it took me like 7 years to ask my wife to marry me.
Oh my God. And since high school sweetheart, like, come on now, like, God bless you, Abby, Abby and Amanda, I swear.
But
I would have killed you if you gave me that, if that was that long. I'd be like, oh my God. And she is incredible. And in so many different ways. But I know that you talked about like how coming out to Amanda, I'm assuming that Amanda was the first person you came out to.
Yeah, she was definitely the first person I talked to. I initially came out not as a trans woman specifically, but just as I'm really struggling with this and I need to talk to a therapist to figure it out.
Okay.
But honestly, the entire process post that point probably was kind of quick. And if anything, maybe I'm almost a little regretful that it was so fast. Maybe not so much for me, but for Amanda and for the people around me who may have been a little, swept up in how quickly it made changes.
Needed a beat to like, okay, let's process.
Yeah. I mean, I've had years to sort of process it, at least in small ways, like, years to collect those puzzle pieces and sort of understand myself. So it was a big change. I know Amanda's always seen me, or at least she did before, was as, just a kind of a feminine leaning guy. Like I was never super masculine about nearly anything, but it still was a shock to her and it was a shock to my parents. So I don't know. But the decision itself, I figured out what trans meant, and I was able to find resources and point to things that I recognized on YouTube or on Reddit, or one of my sort of big, I'm hesitant to call it inspirations, but Hunter Schafer, she's an actor. She played a role in the TV show Euphoria on HBO.
Oh yeah,
And she's trans herself, and I think that was one of the first experiences watching that TV show where I was like, oh, I see someone who's out in the world and she's living her best life and she just happens to be trans.
That show is intense.
It is. It's not really one I recommend. It's very dark. It's very
dark.
It's a lot.
My nieces were like, that sounds fun. I'm like, you both are 13. I don't think so.
It's a bit of a rough show, but it was one of those first examples I could point to. It was like, here's someone who I identify with, who's closer to my own age. I think for me, a lot of the time, the thing was I knew that trans people existed for a long time, but I had a lot of bad assumptions about what it meant to be trans or what that would mean for my life. And I assumed that if I was trans myself, I would stick out wherever I went. I'd constantly have a spotlight on me, and I hated that idea.
Well, yeah, because you're a shy person. You've been shy since the day I met you. You're not this, like me, where it's like everybody knows when Lyndsay's in the stinking room.
I don't know. I've always been a little bit on the quieter side.
Yeah.
I feel after coming out, I feel a little bit like I'm emerging from my shell. There's certain things I can sort of point to that make me feel like I'm growing and evolving. And I don't know, I think it's a little silly, but I feel like I'm blooming as a person.
I don't think that's silly at all.
As I've figured myself out.
Right. I mean, you have, did you just say bloom or blossom? One of the two. I mean, they mean about the
same idea.
Oh my gosh. But it's true. Like, when you started with me, my company name, it's just the same company. I just rebranded it. But at the time it was Metamorphosis Creations, because I was in this place where I was changing. And I constantly am working on myself. I'm way better at it than I was yesterday. And I'm better at it than I was 2 days ago. And it's a constant struggle for me because, like I said, I feel like my puzzle just keeps, either I found it all together and then somebody took it and like threw half of it out and like, on the 15 on the way back from Vegas or something. But I've been trying to put these pieces together to figure out how I'm going to be, because you had mentioned something to me when we were talking, I don't know, it was like a week or two ago, and you're talking about how you would look in the mirror and you couldn't recognize yourself. And at the time, right? Mm-hmm. Well, right now, I struggle with that with my CRPS because my body, my hair, the way I feel, the way I look, all the things I used to do, I can't run and hike and bike and ski and yoga and do all the things I used to do. So I'm just going to sit down on my butt all day. That's not my personality, Right. And so looking at myself and trying to figure out who this person is now going into the future of my life is scary as shit. It is
Right.
so scary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's really hard when you're faced with difficult situations and it completely